Hare Krishna. Welcome to the 13th class of the Krishna book. We're going to start with chapter 28. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's our last Krishna book.
It's our last Krishna book class in this container. Stay tuned for more.
Announcing
And start with Kirtan.
Session's audio. Let's take a deep breath in together, fill up through your nose. Open your mouth, exhale, clear it out. We start with our opening prayers, this invocation, this offering of gratitude, of opening to humility and receptivity, receiving this knowledge and understanding. Gratitude. Deep breath in. Vaishnavebhyo
Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. All right. So, what are your reflections? Any reflections from the reading, chapter 26 and 27 last week? So, yeah.
I kept thinking how paternal it felt, the whole interaction between Krishna and, oh my God, Indra. And that like he could have probably taken him out or destroyed him or done something to him, but instead he lifted up the hill, protected his people, and just felt like a teenager. You know, like Indra had to get out his feeling of puffed upness and realize on his own it was supreme. I just felt this whole like dad loving parental kind of exchange.
Yeah, you had to have a little timeout.
Yeah.
But there's nothing personal in it. It was just for his own purification. Yeah.
Didn't do anything to him. He didn't spin him around or throw him or any of the things we saw in the other chapters.
Yeah, because he's not a demon. He's a very dear devotee. In fact, he even apologized, like, I'm really sorry I had to correct you like that. Please don't, don't mind. But it was something we had to do. Yeah, really fatherly. And Indra says that. He says actually that you're the supreme parent. And so you have the supreme right, like a father or mother, or says like a guru, you have the right to chastise your dependent because you're completely responsible for them and you're completely their well-wisher. There's no malice in you. And we can see that. Yeah, there is like no sense of it's just no false ego with Krishna. Everything is absolute. So him so-called killing a demon and correcting a devotee and protecting other devotees, they all look different externally, but they're all absolutely good. So
always welcomed.
And always welcomed. Yeah. Yeah. So Indra is like, don't worry, you got your position, keep going, Krishna, you can practically imagine like he's encouraging, like you fell down, you kind of fell on your face a little bit, it's all right. You learned your lesson, keep going. And that's relevant because, none of us here are in the category of like magic using shape-shifting demons who are trying to murder the supreme person. And at least I'm not in the category of, a resident of Vrindavan where it's like causeless, spontaneous love for Krishna with no interruption. So Indra is actually really relatable here, where it's like he's a devotee and then he's like intoxicated and overwhelmed with his own sense of importance or whatever. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? And then there's this reckoning, but it's actually very sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
We were talking about how, and it reminds me of, I caught the end of what you were sharing, Allison, because I had to get my book, but Krishna's not here to punish us. He's here to help us wake up, right, from the like misery that is of the material world.
Yeah.
And so whether that's with a demon or, because even the demon who he seemingly punishes by like, killing, he's liberating them.
He's saving them from having to live out any more life in that particularly twisted, incarnation.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then with Indra, like he's a devotee and he's misbehaved and yet he still doesn't punish him. And he's like, oh yeah, you just needed that wake up call, that ego check.
He's not giving anything more than what they need. There's no hint of like, that's for you. And this is for wasting my time. How dare you?
No animosity.
There's no hard feelings. There's no ego. There's no power trip. He's not like putting anyone under his thumb. He already has supreme power and control. There's no need to show anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really relevant because, in our spiritual life, lives we will have wake-up calls. And it's important. It's like, imagine you're going to walk into traffic and someone yells at you to get you to stop walking. You know, they may not be able to walk up to you and be like, "Sir, madam, I hope you're having a good day. Kindly excuse my interruption. If I may bring your attention to the fact that you're about to get run over in now," they don't have time. They'll be, "Hey, get out of the way. You're going to get run over." It's a little bit intense. It's a little bit urgent. It's a little bit time sensitive, and it's for your own good. Really, really, that's for your own good. Just in that situation, they have no malice. There's like, they don't want to see you die. They don't want to see you suffer. And so in the moment you may look, and then you realize, oh, you just saved my life, right? So at the moment, actually, we see Indra was not happy with how things were going, that this rainstorm he sent, my plans aren't going the way I expected them to. I expected that this would devastate Vrindavan, and it's not happening. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. And then he realized, oh, actually, there's someone in the wrong here, and it's me. I almost walked into the traffic, and Krishna just bailed me out. So it's that kind of like internal witness or external witness. You know, sometimes it's like a tap on the shoulder, sometimes it's yelling in your ear. But as Indra saw, there's never any malice there. So it's just prevent us from getting wiped out by the traffic of our own Maya. Thank you.
And then how Indra also is willing to like repent. Like, you know, he's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I made a mistake, and just apologizes.
Yeah, and Prabhupada says it's a sign of a devotee. Sign of a devotee is not that they don't make mistakes. It's that they realize, they come to their own, you know, conclusion that maybe requires some help, but they realize, okay, this is like true north, and I was over here somewhere, and you know, they take accountability for that. They do something about it. They say something, they show up differently. Maybe like if it affected other people, they'll like apologize, they'll make amends. There's some way in which to take accountability. And Indra, he feels really bad, and he talks about that, and he surrenders to Krishna. So that's it. That's what devotees do.
Yeah.
Thank you. More any more reflections?
I also really appreciated that aspect of like Indra's self-reflection. That was something that I was really thinking about, was just, you know, what an example that is. And Indra tends to get himself into some predicaments here and there, but it's really powerful when you get to like think about the impact of self-reflection. And like, you know, for me, like my tendency is like, oh, I made a mistake, and then I like feel really bad about it, and then I like, you know, think poorly of myself, and like, what did you, I don't know, you know, you're not that great, whatever. But to think about, you know, him in this moment where he's just like, yeah, I did this, like, I understand that this is because of my puffed up pride, and because of my ego, and because of all of this. And then, you know, Krishna is not just like, he's like accepting him, and he's loving him, and he's taking care of him and guiding him through that moment of self-reflection. And I just thought that was a really powerful reminder of how to try to navigate this life.
Yeah, how to process your own mistakes. And Indra asks for that tolerance. He says, like, please remember that I'm your servant. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but he says basically that I'm your servant, and even if I've made a mistake, and I definitely made a mistake, it was wrong, but please remember that I'm your servant, and so forgive me, because in other words, I have nowhere else to go. And Brahma said the same thing too. He said, just like, you know, a mother may be kicked by a child in the womb, they're contained by their mother's body, and the mother never takes offense, because the child is just like, they're dependent. There's this unconditional love. So I overstepped, Krishna, but I'm not taking shelter anywhere else. I'm like a child in your womb. You please forgive me, just like a patient mother would. So there is that actual, so, you know, as a remedy for maybe in the mode of ignorance, beating ourselves up would involve forgetting our relationship with Krishna. So, but accountability and Vaishnava humility means that there's a way in which we realize we did wrong, but it's not disconnected from Krishna. It's actually connected to Krishna. It's like, yeah, that all happened, and I'm owning it, and it happened because I forgot Krishna. And now that I'm remembering him, I'm asking him, please, like, let me not forget you again, and please take me back, right? And of course, Krishna does. So it's as always, the solution to our missteps and our problems is to reconnect, and Indra does that deliberately. He names what he did wrong, and he actually like reminds himself, not that Krishna needs reminding, but at least he reminds himself, like, I'm your servant, so you please, Krishna, deal with me that way. And Krishna, of course, does. Yeah, Jiva Goswami mentions in his commentaries, I don't remember what section of the Bhagavatam, but because there are several where it could be this kind of thing comes up, but he says that when you see great devotees or very empowered persons like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Indra, they may overstep or they make a mistake. It's to be understood that that's to set an example for others. It's not like, look at that loser. Boy, he really made a fool of himself. It's like, no, you're making a fool of yourself. And devotees like that are taking the fall in a Leela like this so that people like us can introspect about the ways in which we're actually making it. They're doing that in the pastime. It's the role they play. Krishna trusts them enough to play that role. So it's actually like important to remember that, because Indra kind of has a bit of a role of like being a bit of a buffoon at times in the Bhagavatam because of how he keeps making mistakes. And it's easy to think like maybe he's like just not a very good devotee or whatever. But you don't get to be Indra unless you're a very sincere devotee. It just doesn't happen. So whether it's this Indra or that Indra in this age or that age, whatever particular jiva is there going through whatever process of purification, they're in a situation where they're already very dear to Krishna. So we're learning just how to reconnect when we make mistakes. And it's also reassuring because none of us had tried to kill an entire village full of Krishna's devotees.
No.
So yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really enjoyed the conversation around like sincerity, how it started, and when everyone was talking about it, and then just showing up how you are, like as a devotee, like just showing up,
Yeah.
So.
Because that's what Krishna sees.
Mhm.
It's kind of liberating, with Krishna, you never have to put on a face because you can't. He sees it all anyway, and he's fine with you. Everyone else, we're just kind of like, as conditioned souls, are always just kind of angle shoot. Can I look good here? And how do I? And Krishna always sees us. He saw before Nanda Maharaj even started discussing. He saw like, oh, they're worshiping Indra, and Indra's up there thinking he's such a big deal. I got to deal with this. He saw Indra. He saw what was happening. He was like so many steps ahead. But there's never any need to play politics with him because he completely accepts us. So just get to be us. Anyone else? Otherwise, we can go into chapter 28. All right, chapter 28. Releasing Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rakshamam. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Pahima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Jai Krishna book. The Govardhana Puja ceremony took place on the new moon day. After this, there were torrents of rain and hailstorms imposed by King Indra for 7 days. 9 days of the waxing moon having passed, on the 10th day, King Indra worshipped Lord Krishna, and thus the matter was satisfactorily settled. After this, on the 11th day of the full moon, Ekadashi, Maharaj Nanda observed fasting for the whole day, and early in the morning of the next day, Dvadashi, he went to take a bath in the river Yamuna. He entered deep into the water of the river, but he was arrested immediately by one of the servants of Varuna Deva. This servant brought Nanda Maharaj before the demigod Varuna and accused him of taking a bath in the river at the wrong time. According to astronomical calculations, the time in which he took a bath was considered demoniac. The fact was that Nanda Maharaj wanted to take a bath in the river Yamuna early in the morning before the sunrise, but somehow or other he was a little too early, and he bathed at an inauspicious time. Consequently, he was arrested. When Nanda Maharaj was taken away by one of Varuna's servants, Nanda's companions began to call loudly for Krishna and Balaram. Immediately, Krishna and Balaram could understand that Nanda Maharaj had been taken by a servant of Varuna. Thus, they went to the abode of Varuna, for they were pledged to give protection to the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were all unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Devotees, having no shelter other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally cry to him for help, exactly like children who do not know anything but the protection of their parents. So Varuna is a demigod like Indra. His domain is the water. He's overseeing bodies of water. The demigod Varuna received Lord Krishna and Balaram with great respect and said, "My dear Lord, actually at this very moment, because of your presence, my life as the demigod Varuna has become successful. Although I am the proprietor of all the treasures in the water, I know that such possessions do not make for a successful life. But at this moment, as I look at you, my life is made completely successful because by seeing you, I no longer have to accept a material body. Therefore, O Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Brahman, and Super Soul of everything, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. You are the Supreme Transcendental Personality. There is no possibility of imposing the influence of material nature upon you. I am very sorry that my foolish man, by not knowing what to do or what not to do, has mistakenly arrested your father, Nanda Maharaj. So I beg your pardon for the offense of my servant. I think that it was your plan to show me your mercy by your personal presence here. My dear Lord Krishna Govinda, be merciful upon me. Here is your father. You can take him back immediately." In this way, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, rescued his father and presented him before his friends, bringing them great jubilation. Nanda Maharaj was surprised that, although the demigod was so opulent, he had offered such respect to Krishna. That was very astonishing to Nanda. And he began to describe the incident to his friends and relatives with great wonder. Actually, although Krishna was acting so wonderfully, Maharaj Nanda and Mother Yashoda could not think of him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead, they always accepted him as their beloved child. Thus, Nanda Maharaj did not accept the fact that Varuna had worshipped Krishna because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, he took it that because Krishna was such a wonderful child, he'd been respected even by Varuna. The friends of Nanda Maharaj, all the cowherd men, became eager to know if Krishna was actually the Supreme Personality and if he was going to give them all salvation. When they were all thus consulting among themselves, Krishna understood their minds. And in order to assure them of their destiny in the spiritual kingdom, he showed them the spiritual sky. Generally, ordinary persons are engaged simply in working hard in the material world, and they have no information that there is another kingdom or another sky, which is known as the spiritual sky, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a person returning to that spiritual sky never returns to this material world of death and suffering. That's chapter 15, like 7. Amay Mangsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. No. Look it up. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always eager to give information to the conditioned soul that there is a spiritual sky far, far beyond this material sky, transcendental to the innumerable universes created within the total material energy. Krishna is, of course, always very kind to every conditioned soul, but as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, he is especially inclined to the pure devotees. Hearing their inquiries, Krishna immediately thought that his devotees in Vrindavan should be informed of the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha planets therein. Within the material world, every conditioned soul is in the darkness of ignorance. This means that all conditioned souls are under the concept of bodily existence. Everyone is under the impression that they are of this material world, and with this concept of life, everyone is working in ignorance in different forms of life. The activities with a particular type of body are called karma, or fruitive action. All conditioned souls being under the impression of the bodily concept are working according to their particular type of body. These activities are creating their future conditioned life. Because they have very little information of the spiritual world, they do not generally take to spiritual activities, which are called bhakti yoga. Those who successfully practice bhakti yoga go directly to the spiritual world after giving up this present body. and there they become situated in one of the Vaikuntha planets. The inhabitants of Vrindavan are all pure devotees. Their destination after quitting the body is Krishna Loka. They even surpass the Vaikuntha Lokas. The fact is that those who are always engaged in Krishna consciousness and mature, pure devotional service are given the chance after death to gain Krishna's association in one of the universes within the material world. Krishna's pastimes are continuously going on, either in this universe or in another universe. Just as the sun globe is passing over many places across this earthly planet, so Krishna Lila, or the transcendental advent and pastimes of Krishna, are also going on continuously, either in this or another universe. The mature devotees who have completely executed Krishna consciousness are immediately transferred to the universe where Krishna is appearing. In that universe, the devotees get their first opportunity to associate with Krishna personally and directly. The training goes on, as we see in the Vrindavan Leela of Krishna within this planet. Krishna therefore revealed the actual features of the Vaikuntha planets so that the inhabitants of Vrindavan could know their destination. Does that make sense? So there's a spiritual sky, there's a spiritual world, and in the spiritual world, Krishna in a variety of forms, such as Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, such as Ramachandra, Lord Chaitanya, Varahadev, Nrsingadev, this Vishnu form, that Vishnu form, are reciprocating and living and existing with spiritual pastimes with their devotees. And each form of the Lord, each manifestation has a particular mood, and the devotees there are particularly inclined to that mood. And what's also true is that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has a bit of a traveling roadshow. He's appearing, just like the sun sets on one side of the horizon, rises, and then it disappears. And before it rose and after it sets, we can say it's not there. But it's not that the sun doesn't exist anymore. It's just that, the relative position of the earth means you cannot see it. It's out of your sight until the sun rises again. So similarly, what's happening is that Krishna is born. He was born in the geographical district of Mathura in India. You can go to the place in Gokul, in Mathura district, and you can go to Vrindavan where he lived. After he was very young, and Nanda Maharaj crossed the Yamuna, he grew up in Vrindavan. Those are all real places. And it's the material world, right? But it becomes the spiritual world when Krishna comes and lives there. He lives, he has his pastimes, he disappears. And he goes, and he's born, appears, like the sun rises, in another place, in another material universe. There are countless material universes. Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya Sadhana, Shakti Rekha, the Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam also, they talk about how there's this creation, constant evolution of life, many, many planets, the expansions of universes, and they are countless in number. This is not the only universe. It's not a closed system. What to speak of the only planet? There are many places that support life even within this universe, and there are many universes. They're compared to like molecules coming out of the body of Mahavishnu. He's expanding these universes from his body with every breath. He breathes out, they're manifested. He breathes in, they come back into his body. And so Krishna is appearing in each one over and over and over again. And when somebody is aiming for Krishna, they'll take birth in Vrindavan, in the material world, wherever he happens to be having his pastimes, so that it's a place where they actually get trained up in their mode of service that they've cultivated, their loving relationship with Krishna. They associate with Mother Yashoda, the Mother Yashoda from the spiritual world. They associate with Radharani. They associate with Krishna's friends and cows and other devotees who are on their way up to the spiritual world. And so Krishna is talking here to some of his associates. Prabhupada's talking about how Krishna is thinking, these people are wondering what their destination is, and he wanted to relieve them of any curiosity that they're going to him. Because some of them are eternal associates, and some of them are, like us, leaving the material world.
I'm having a hard time finding that verse. Could it have been 8:15?
What does 8:15 say?
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection.
That'll do it. 8:15. That's not what I'm thinking of.
What verse were you saying?
Give me a Bhagavad Gita. I'll race you. We're gonna have a Bhagavad Gita break. We're gonna have a break because this is what devotees do, to consult with Bhagavad Gita. We'll see if I have any memory of this book.
Here's the Bhagavad Gita.
Done. 15:6.
Oh, I looked at 15:7.
Yeah,
That's
I was
not-
wrong. It's not
It's
7.
not 7.
So when I say that, you should look around at the verses next to it.
Yeah.
Yad Getva Nadivartante Tadama Padamamama. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Yad Getva Nadivartante. They never go back. Tadama Padamam. That supreme abode of mind. That actually holds true for any of his spiritual planets, Krishna Loka, or any of the other aspects of the spiritual world. They're all eternal, and one has no inclination to come down and explore the material energy. They may come for service, they may come as a prophet or a devotee on some kind of mission for the Lord. They won't come to put any money on the table, gamble. Okay, continuing. Thus, Krishna showed them the eternal, ever-existing spiritual sky, which is unlimited and full of knowledge. Within this material world, there are different grades of forms, and according to the grade, knowledge is proportionately manifested. For example, the knowledge in the body of a child is not as perfect as the knowledge in the body of an adult man. Everywhere, there are different grades of living entities in aquatic animals, in the plants and trees, in the reptiles and insects, in birds and beasts, and in the uncivilized and civilized human forms of life. Above the human form of life, there are demigods, charanas and siddhas, on up to Brahmaloka, where Lord Brahma lives. And among these demigods, there are always different grades of knowledge. But beyond this material world, in the spiritual sky, everyone is in full knowledge, and therefore all the living entities there are engaged in devotional service to the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha planets or in Krishna Loka. As it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, full knowledge means knowing Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's 15:15. In the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, it is also stated that in the Brahma Jyotir, or spiritual sky, there is no need of sunlight, moonlight, or electricity. We just read that verse. 15:6. See, Prabhupada, he knows this inside out. He knows the Shastra inside out. The more you read, the more you see that. All the planets there are self-illuminating. That's also proven in the Brahma Samhita. Krishna says that. Brahma says that in his prayers, that the effulgence of even the Brahman effulgence is just the light coming off of the transcendental body of Krishna. That great light that the impersonalists are so obsessed with, it's just the glaring light coming off the beautiful form of Krishna. Apparently separate from him, but not actually. All the planets there are self-illuminating, and all of them are eternally situated. There is no question of creation and annihilation in the Brahma Jyotir, or spiritual sky. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms that beyond the material sky, there is another eternal spiritual sky where everything is eternally existing. Direct knowledge of the spiritual sky can be had only by great sages and saintly persons who have already surpassed the influence of the three material modes of nature by engaging in devotional service, or Krishna consciousness. Unless one is constantly situated on that transcendental platform, it is not possible to understand the spiritual nature. Therefore, it is recommended that one should take to bhakti yoga and keep himself engaged 24 hours a day in Krishna consciousness, which places one beyond the reach of the modes of material nature. One in Krishna consciousness can easily understand the nature of the spiritual sky and Vaikuntha Loka. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, being always engaged in Krishna consciousness, could therefore very easily understand the transcendental nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus, Krishna led all the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, to the lake where Akrura would later be shown the Vaikuntha planetary system. They took their bath immediately and saw the real nature of the Vaikuntha Lokas. After seeing the spiritual sky and the Vaikuntha Lokas, all the men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, felt wonderfully blissful, and upon coming out of the lake, they saw Krishna, who was being worshipped with excellent prayers. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 28th chapter of Krishna, releasing Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna. Jai. There's a demon associated with that?
Yeah. Thinking that spiritual life can be enhanced by intoxication.
So that's a misunderstanding. The idea that you can get closer to divinity through chemical alteration of your state of consciousness. Even if you alter your state of consciousness to perceive the possibility of spiritual life, You render yourself dependent on some chemical experience to have it. It's not really what the soul's about. The soul is not dependent on some material intervention. The soul does not matter. So that's a persistent misunderstanding in a variety of traditions. And so what I guess what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying is that that misconception, that misalignment is purified by hearing this pastime. You won't want to, well, you know, we see with the hippies, they were trying to get somewhere with like different chemicals. And then Prabhupada came and he's like, stay high forever with Bhakti Yoga. So that they were no longer so, the fortunate devotees weren't so, you know, confused by that possibility.
Grateful Dead did tool up with probably.
A lot of bands did. A lot of bands did. I mean, we find, I know a lot of people who their first experience with Bhakti was going to like a Fish concert or something and meeting people in the parking lot.
We did a kirtan in a Fish.
Yeah, because if you think creatively, you can think about where are people going where they're looking to expand their consciousness, where they're trying to reach something higher. And maybe if you came from that background, you already have some experience of it in this life. And so creative and compassionate devotees have thought about that. I remember when I was a monk going to like EDM concerts, electronic dance music, and there were a variety of different, you know, acts and groups, and some of them were kind of spiritually inclined, and they would even chant like some mantras mixed in with their whatever loud grating electronic beats they had going on, and people would go there looking to get beyond their thing. And we distribute a lot of books. People were very interested in what we had to say there because they would resonate with our message. So they were looking, and we were trying to show up with kirtan and invitations to the Sunday feast and literally Krishna books. I remember distributing Krishna books. So yeah, hopefully they read this chapter. That's what it's all about.
Right.
Okay, any comments in this chapter before we go to 29? Questions, reflections? Okay. Chapter 29, the Rasa Dance, Introduction. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Rasa Dance took place on the full moon night of the Sharat season. That's the autumn. From the statements of previous chapters, it appears that the festival of Govardhana Puja was performed just after the dark moon night of the month of Kartik. And thereafter, the ceremony of Bhratri Dvitiya was performed. Then the wrath of Indra was exhibited in the shape of torrents of rain and hailstones. And Lord Krishna held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days, until the 9th day of the moon. Thereafter, on the 10th day, the inhabitants of Vrindavan were talking amongst themselves about the wonderful activities of Krishna. And the next day, Ekadashi was observed by Nanda Maharaj. On the next day, Nanda Maharaj went to take a bath in the Ganges and was arrested by one of the men of Varuna. Then he was released by Lord Krishna. Then Nanda Maharaj, along with the cowherd men, was shown the spiritual sky. In this way, the full moon night of the Sharat season came to an end. The full moon night of Ashvina is called Sharat Purnima. It appears from the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna had to wait another year for such a moon before enjoying the Rasa dance with the gopis. At the age of 7 years, he lifted Govardhan Hill. Therefore, the Rasa dance took place during his 8th year. Of note, because he's not a young man yet, he's still a boy. But he's Krishna. From the Vedic literature, it appears that when a theatrical actor dances among many dancing girls, the group dance is called a Rasa dance. When Krishna saw the full moon night of the Sharat season, decorated with various seasonal flowers, especially the Mallika flowers, which are very fragrant, he remembered the gopis' prayers to goddess Katyayani, where they had prayed for Krishna to be their husband. They thought that the full moon night of the Sharat season was just suitable for a nice dance. So, their desire to have Krishna as their husband would then be fulfilled. The words used in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam are Bhagavan api. This means that, although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus has no desire that needs to be fulfilled, because he is always full with 6 opulences, he still wanted to enjoy the company of the gopis in the Rasa dance. Bhagavan api signifies that this dance is not like the ordinary dancing of young boys and young girls. The specific words used in Srimad Bhagavatam are Yogamayam Upashritaha, which means that this dancing with the gopis is on the platform of Yogamaya, not Mahamaya. The dancing of young boys and girls within the material world is in the kingdom of Mahamaya, or the external energy. The rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis is on the platform of Yogamaya. The difference between the platforms of Yogamaya and Mahamaya is compared in the Chaitanya Charitamrita to the difference between gold and iron. From the viewpoint of metallurgy, gold and iron are both metals, but the quality is completely different. Similarly, although the rasa dance and Lord Krishna's association with the gopis appear like the ordinary mixing of young boys and girls, the quality is completely different. The difference is appreciated by great Vaishnavas because they can understand the difference between love of Krishna and lust. On the Mahamaya platform, dances take place on the basis of sense gratification. But when Krishna called the gopis by sounding his flute, they very hurriedly rushed toward the spot of the rasa dance with a transcendental desire to satisfy Krishna. The author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has explained that lust means sense gratification, and love also means sense gratification, but for Krishna. In other words, when activities are enacted on the platform of personal sense gratification, they're called material activities. But when they are enacted for the satisfaction of Krishna, then they are spiritual activities. On any platform of activities, the principle of sense gratification is there. But on the spiritual platform, sense gratification is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whereas on the material platform, it is for the performer. For example, on the material platform, when a servant serves a master, they're trying to satisfy not the senses of their master, but rather their own senses. The servant would not serve the master if the payment stopped. That means that the servant engages himself in the service of the master just to satisfy their own senses. On the spiritual platform, however, the servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serves Krishna without payment, and they continue their service in all conditions. That is the difference between Krishna consciousness and material consciousness. Also, in material consciousness, if you try to serve someone else selflessly, first of all, it's not completely possible to do because they're not able to reciprocate with you perfectly. No one but Krishna can. You can serve Krishna eternally. You can serve Krishna without interruption because he's the totality and he can perfectly connect. He knows us perfectly. He perfectly is connected to us. There's no interruption to the relationship and he knows exactly how to reciprocate with us. That's not true of anybody else. Also, if we have a desire to be of service, that's coming from the soul. But if it's like, oh, well, I'll serve my partner, I'll serve my children, I'll serve my country, I'll serve this cause or that cause, it's imperfectly placed, and it's also mixed with some, we can see generally some pride, some condition. Prabhupada says, for example, the closest thing to unconditional love that's available in the material world is the love of a mother for their child. It's the closest example to love that has no conditions. And yet there's still some way in which after a point you're like, you know what? I'm really tired of being taken for granted. You know, can you please do the dishes or whatever? Like there's that, I remember my mom saying things like that to me, right? God bless her. I put her through a lot. And it's like, there's some way in which these conditions come up, recognition, something or other, and that's there in material consciousness. It's not there in spiritual consciousness. So it's a subtle distinction. There's like how we serve, and there's also who we serve. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it doesn't mean that like we can't serve other people, but it's important to be able to connect them to Krishna, which they are. But then it's actually like appropriate. And we're not just serving somebody because they happen to be our flesh and blood, or because we like the way they look, or they believe what we believe, or they're in the same political party, or they're the same species. Because we see that part and parcel of Krishna, then we're connected. You know, there's that middle piece of like we're connected through Krishna. And that makes it non-sectarian too, because everyone is connected to everyone through Krishna and everything. Otherwise, it's just like, yeah, I'm into like, you know, people with dark hair because I have dark hair, or I'm into people I can relate to because I have this idea, or I like this kind of movie. You're like, oh, you're my kind of person. You don't like it, I don't like you anymore. It's all sectarian, you know. If there's something else in the middle other than Krishna, then some people will have that in common with us, and some people won't. It's like it's always going to be some amount of like compromise. So, as mentioned above, it appears that Krishna enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis when he was 8 years old. At that time, many of the gopis were married because in India, especially in those days, girls were married at a very early age. There are even many instances of girls giving birth to a child at the age of 12. Also, that can mean that they were married, but there's no consummation or living with the partners. Like they're arranged to be married, and when they're ready, then they'll go live their house and they'll have a ceremony and all that. But they've already been betrothed. Under the circumstances, all the gopis who wanted to have Krishna as their husband were already married. At the same time, they continued to hope that Krishna would be their husband. Their attitude toward Krishna was that of paramour love. Therefore, the loving affairs of Krishna and the gopis are called parakiya rasa. The attitude of a married man who desires another wife or wife who desires another husband is called parakiya rasa. Actually, Krishna is the husband of everyone because he is the supreme enjoyer. The gopis wanted Krishna to be their husband, but factually, there was no possibility of his marrying all the gopis. But because they had that natural tendency to accept Krishna as their supreme husband, the relationship between the gopis and Krishna is called parakiya rasa. This parakiya rasa is ever existent in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual sky, where there is no possibility of the inebriety which characterizes parakiya rasa in the material world. In the material world, parakiya rasa is abominable, whereas in the spiritual world, it is present in the super excellent relationship of Krishna and the gopis. There are many relationships with Krishna: master and servant, friend, parent and son, and lover and beloved. Out of all these rasas, the parakiya rasa is considered to be the topmost. This material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. The topmost part of a tree is seen as the lowest part. Right? You have a tree. The highest part of the tree is going to be the lowest part of the reflection. Similarly, parakiya rasa, when pervertedly reflected in this material world, is most abominable. Therefore, when people imitate the rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis, they simply enjoy the perverted, abominable reflection of the transcendental parakiya rasa. There is no possibility of enjoying this transcendental parakiya rasa within the material world. It is stated that in Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not imitate this parakiya rasa even in dream or in imagination. Those who do so drink the most deadly poison. When Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, desired to enjoy the company of the gopis on that full moon night of the Sharat season, exactly at that very moment, the moon, the lord of the stars, appeared in the sky, displaying its most beautiful features. The full moon night of the Sharat season is the most beautiful night in the year. In the Indian city of Agra, in Uttar Pradesh province, there is a great monument called the Taj Mahal, which is a tomb made of first-class marble stone. During the night of the full moon of the Sharat season, many foreigners go to see the beautiful reflections of the moon on the tomb. Thus, this full moon night is celebrated even today for its beauty. When the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, this whole sky appeared smeared by red kumkuma. When a husband long separated from his wife returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kumkuma. This long-expected moonrise of the Sharat season was thus smearing the eastern sky.
That's a part of wedding ceremonies too,
Yeah,
putting on the kumkum.
yeah. The appearance of the moon increased Krishna's desire to dance with the gopis. The forests were filled with fragrant flowers. The atmosphere was cooling and festive. When Krishna began to blow his flute, the gopis all over Vrindavan became enchanted. Their attraction to the vibration of the flute increased 1,000 times due to the rising full moon, the red horizon, the calm and cool atmosphere, and the blossoming flowers. All the gopis were by nature very much attracted to Krishna's beauty, and when they heard the vibration of his flute, they became apparently lustful to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Immediately upon hearing the vibration of the flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran very swiftly, their earrings swung back and forth. They all rushed toward the place known as Vamshivata. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put it in a milk pan on the stove to boil. But she did not care whether the milk overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families, but they left all such engagements and immediately rushed toward the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were themselves engaged in eating. But caring neither to serve their husbands nor eat, they immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their faces with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna, but unfortunately, they could not finish their cosmetic decorations or put on their clothes in the right way because of their anxiety to meet Krishna immediately. Their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their clothes on the upper part of their bodies, and the upper part on the lower part. While all the gopis were hurriedly leaving their respective places, their husbands, brothers, and fathers were all struck with wonder to know where they were going. Being young girls, they were protected either by husbands, elder brothers, or fathers. All the guardians forbade them to go to Krishna, but they disregarded them. When a person becomes attracted by Krishna and is in full Krishna consciousness, they do not care for any worldly duties, even though very urgent. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it gives everyone relief from all material activities. Srila Rupa Goswami has written a very nice verse wherein one gopi advises another. My dear friend, if you desire to enjoy the company of material society, friendship, and love, then please do not go to see that smiling boy Govinda, who is standing on the bank of the Yamuna and playing his flute, his lips brightened by the beams of the full moonlight. Srila Rupa Goswami indirectly instructs that one who has been captivated by the beautiful smiling face of Krishna has lost all attraction for material enjoyments. This is the test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A person advancing in Krishna consciousness must lose interest in material activities and personal sense gratification. Some of the gopis were factually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their minds. They proved to be the greatest yogis, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within their heart with faith and love is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. That's the last verse in chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, the chapter on Ashtanga Yoga. Actually, a yogi concentrates their mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu tattvas. The gopis who could not go to Krishna personally, so they began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. It's supposed to say the gopis.
This is the gopis who could not personally go to Krishna began to meditate on him
Yeah.
as perfect yogi.
The gopis who could not personally go to Krishna began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. In the conditioned stage of living entities, there are two kinds of results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity who is constantly engaged in sinful activities has suffering as their result, and they who are engaged in pious activities has material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. The gopi associates of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were from different groups. Many of the gopis were eternal companions of Krishna. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavithabhi. In the spiritual world, the associates of Krishna, especially the gopis, are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. They are expansions of Srimati Radharani. But when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world, in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna come, but also those who are being promoted to that status from this material world. So some of the gopis who joined Krishna's pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. If they had been bound by fruitive action, they were fully freed from the reactions of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions. And their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence ended all the reactions to material pious activities. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death, either by pious or sinful activities, but the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna transcended both positions and became purified, and thus elevated to the status of the gopis already expanded by his pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in the spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all the fruitive reactions of material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the three modes of material nature. So the suffering of not being able to go with Krishna was so intense, and the joy of communing with him in their heart was so intense that it burned off all their so-called bad and good karma, respectively. Those gopis were actually physically restrained from going to him, and they actually left their bodies and went to the spiritual world right away. Confirmed. Maharaj Parikshit heard Shukadeva Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the rasa dance. When he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all contamination of material birth and death, he said, "The gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and considered him to be their paramour. So how is it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour? One should consider here that Krishna and ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living beings, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also Brahman, but Krishna is the supreme, Parabrahman. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material contaminated stage simply by thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking of someone? If one is thinking of a husband or son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then, since all living entities are also Brahman, why are all those who thus think of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? This is a very intelligent question, because there are always atheists imitating Krishna. In these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna, and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Lord Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of blind followers of demoniac imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately it is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. It is warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayana, or Krishna on the same level as the demigods is called a Pashandi, or rascal. On hearing this question from Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered even before this incident." Because Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clear up the situation, his spiritual master answered him very intelligently. Quote, "Why are you again asking about the same subject matter which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful?" A spiritual master is always in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way. Shukadeva Goswami knew that Maharaj Parikshit asked the question not for his own understanding, but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami then reminded Parikshit Maharaj about the salvation of Shishupal. Shishupala was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. But since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shishupala gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then what to speak of the gopis, who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love? There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends like the gopis can achieve such freedom and much more. Besides that, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is called Hrishikesha. Shukadeva Goswami also said that Krishna is Hrishikesha, the Supersoul, whereas an ordinary man is a conditioned soul covered by a material body. Krishna and Krishna's body are the same because he is Hrishikesha. Any person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Hrishikesha and Atokshaja. These two particular words have been used by Shukadeva Goswami in this instance. Hrishikesha is the Supersoul, and the Atokshaja is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to the material nature. Just to show favor to the ordinary living entities, out of his causeless mercy, he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and so they become eligible to go to hell.
Can I ask you a question? I know what
Yeah.
Rishikesh means translated, but what's Adhosaja?
I'm just thinking if Prabhupada is going to get to that. Doesn't look like he does here. Atokshaja means above or beyond the senses, not
They
able
both
to.
mean the same thing, kind of. Rishikesh and.
Sort of. Rishikesh literally means the master of the senses, the supreme controller, proprietor of the senses. Atokshaja means he who is cannot be no one can be equal or greater than him. He's above the senses. You can't, in other words, you can't figure him out with your 20/20 vision or any other quality of your material body, including your mind. Impenetrable. Shukadeva Goswami continued to inform Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna is not an ordinary person, but rather the supreme personality of Godhead, imperishable, immeasurable, and without any material qualities, but full of all spiritual qualities. He appears in this material world out of his causeless mercy, and whenever he appears as he is, without change. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says that he appears by his spiritual potency. He does not appear under the control of the material potency. That's Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text 6. The material potency is under his control. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the material potency is working under his superintendence. It is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the material potency known as Durga is acting like a shadow, just like a shadow of the substance. The conclusion is that if one somehow or other becomes attached to Krishna or attracted to him, either because of his qualities of beauty, opulence, fame, strength, renunciation, or knowledge, through affection or friendship, or even through lust, anger, or fear, then one's salvation and freedom from material contamination are assured. In the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, the Lord states that one who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness is very dear to him. A preacher has to face many difficulties in their struggle to preach pure Krishna consciousness. Sometimes they have to suffer bodily injuries, and sometimes they also have to meet death. All this is taken as a great austerity on behalf of Krishna. Krishna therefore has said that such a preacher is very, very dear to him. If Krishna's enemies can expect salvation simply by concentrating their minds on him, then what to speak of persons who are so dear to Krishna? The conclusion should be that the salvation of those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed in all circumstances. But such preachers never care for salvation, because factually one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, has already achieved salvation. Shukadeva Goswami therefore assured King Parikshit that he should always rest assured that one who is attracted by Krishna attains liberation from material bondage, because Krishna is the transcendental master of all mystic power. When all the gopis assembled, as described before Krishna, he began to speak to them, welcoming them as well as discouraging them by word jugglery. Krishna is the supreme speaker. He is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. He can speak on the highest elevated subjects of philosophy, politics, economics, everything. And he also spoke before the gopis who were so dear to him. He wanted to enchant them by word jugglery, and thus he began to speak as follows. "Oh, ladies of Vrindavan," Krishna said, "you are very fortunate and you are very dear to me. I am very pleased that you have come here, and I hope everything is well in Vrindavan. Now please order me. What can I do for you? What is the purpose of your coming here in the dead of night? Kindly take your seats and let me know what I can do for you." The gopis had come to Krishna to enjoy his company, to dance with him, embrace him, and kiss him. And when Krishna began to receive them very officially, showing all kinds of etiquette, they were surprised. He was treating them like ordinary society women. Therefore, they began to smile among themselves, and though very eagerly listened to Krishna talk in that way, they were surprised. Then Krishna began to instruct them. "My dear friends, you must know that it is now the dead of night, and the forest is very dangerous. Therefore, it is very dangerous for you. You cannot select a secure place now. Everywhere you go, you will find that all these animals are loitering to find their prey. I think, therefore, that you are taking a great risk in coming here in the dead of night. Please turn back immediately, without delay." When he saw that they continued to smile, he said, "I very much appreciate your bodily features. All of you have very nice, very thin waists." All the gopis there were exquisitely beautiful. They are described by the word sumadhyama. The standard of beauty of a woman is said to be sumadhyama when the middle portion of the body is slender. Krishna wanted to impress on them that they were not old enough to take care of themselves. Actually, they required protection. It was not very wise for them to come in the dead of night to Krishna. Krishna also indicated that he was young and that they were young girls. Quote, "It does not look very well for young girls and boys to remain together in the dead of night." After hearing this advice, the gopis did not seem very happy. Therefore, Krishna began to stress the point in a different way. My dear friends, I can understand that you have left your homes without the permission of your guardians. Therefore, I think your mothers, your fathers, your elder brothers, and even your sons, and what to speak of your husbands, must be very anxious to find you. As long as you are here, they must be searching in different places, and their minds must be very agitated. So don't tarry. Please go back and make them peaceful. When the gopis appeared to be a little bit disturbed and angry from hearing the free advice of Krishna, they diverted their attention to looking at the beauty of the forest. At that time, the whole forest was illuminated by the bright shining of the moon, and the air was blowing very silently over the blooming flowers, and the green leaves of the trees were moving in the breeze. Krishna took the opportunity of their looking at the forest to advise them. I think you have come out to see the beautiful Vrindavan forest on this night, but you must now be satisfied. So return to your homes without delay. I understand that you are all very chaste women, so now that you have seen the beautiful atmosphere of the Vrindavan forest, please return home and engage in the faithful service of your respective husbands. Some of you must have babies by this time, although you are very young. You must have left your small babies at home, and they must be crying. Please immediately go back home and just feed them with your breast milk. I can also understand that you have very great affection for me, and out of that transcendental affection you have come here, hearing my playing on the flute. Your feelings of love and affection for me are very appropriate because I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All living creatures are my parts and parcels, and naturally are affectionate to me. So this affection for me is very welcome, and I congratulate you for this. Now you can go back to your homes. Another thing I must explain to you is that for a chaste woman, service to the husband without duplicity is the best religious principle. Not only should a woman be faithful and chaste to her husband, but she should also be affectionate to the friends of her husband, obedient to the father and mother of her husband, and affectionate to the younger brothers of her husband. And most importantly, a woman must take care of her children. In this way, Krishna explained the duty of a woman. He also stressed the point of serving the husband. Quote, even if he is not a very good character, or even if he is not very rich or fortunate, or even if he is old or invalid on account of continued diseases, whatever her husband's condition, a woman should not divorce her husband if she actually desires to be elevated to the higher planetary systems after leaving the body. Besides that, it is considered abominable in a society if a woman is unfaithful and goes searching for another man. Such habits will deter a woman from being elevated to the heavenly planets, and the results of such habits are very degrading. A married woman should not search for a paramour, for this is not sanctioned by the Vedic principles of life. If you think that you are very much attached to me and you want my association, I advise you not to personally try to enjoy me. It is better for you to go home, simply talk about me, and think of me, and by this process of constantly remembering me and chanting my names, you will surely be elevated to the spiritual platform. There is no need to stand near me. Please go back home. This instruction given herein by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the gopis was not at all sarcastic. Such instruction should be taken very seriously by all honest women. The chastity of women is specifically stressed herein by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, this principle should be followed by any serious woman who wants to be elevated to a higher status of life. Krishna is the center of all affection for all living creatures. When this affection is developed for Krishna, one surpasses and transcends all Vedic injunctions. This was possible for the gopis because they saw Krishna face to face. This is not possible for any woman in the conditioned state. Unfortunately, sometimes a rascal, following the philosophy of monism or oneness, very irresponsibly takes advantage of this Rasalila to imitate the behavior of Krishna with the gopis, entice many innocent women, and mislead them in the name of spiritual realization. As a warning, Lord Krishna has herein hinted that what was possible for the gopis is not possible for ordinary women. Although a woman can actually be elevated by advanced Krishna consciousness, she should not be enticed by an impostor who says that he is Krishna. She should concentrate her devotional activities in chanting about Krishna and meditating upon him, as is advised herein. One should not follow the men called sahajiyas, the so-called devotees who take everything very lightly. When Krishna spoke in such a discouraging way to the gopis, they became very sad, for they thought that their desire to enjoy the rasa dance with Krishna would be frustrated. Thus they became full of anxiety. Out of great sadness, the gopis began to breathe very heavily. Instead of looking at Krishna face to face, they bowed their heads and looked at the ground, and they began to draw various types of curved lines on the ground with their toes. They were shedding heavy tears, and their cosmetic decorations were being washed from their faces. The water from their eyes mixed with the kumkuma on their breasts and fell to the ground. They could not say anything to Krishna, but simply stood there, silently. By their silence, they expressed that their hearts were grievously wounded. The gopis were not ordinary women. In essence, they were on an equal level with Krishna. They are his eternal associates. As it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, they are expansions of the pleasure potency of Krishna, and as his potency, they are non-different from him. Although they were depressed by the words of Krishna, they did not like to use harsh words against him. Yet, they wanted to rebuke Krishna for his unkind words, and therefore they began to speak in faltering voices. They did not like to use harsh words against Krishna because he was their dearmost, their heart and soul. The gopis had only Krishna within their hearts. They were completely surrendered and dedicated souls. Naturally, when they heard such unkind words, they tried to reply, but in the attempt, torrents of tears fell from their eyes. Finally, they managed to speak. Krishna, they said, you are very cruel. You should not talk like that. We are full-fledged, surrendered souls. Please accept us, and don't talk in that cruel way. Of course, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you can do whatever you like, but it is not worthy of your position to treat us in such a cruel way. We have come to you, leaving everything behind, just to take shelter of your lotus feet. We know that you are completely independent and you can do whatever you like, but we request you, don't reject us. We are your devotees. You should accept us as Lord Narayana accepts his devotees. There are many devotees of Lord Narayana who worship him for salvation, and he awards them salvation. Similarly, how can you reject us when we have no shelter other than your lotus feet? O dear Krishna, they continued, you are the supreme instructor, there is no doubt about it. Your instructions to women to be faithful to their husbands and merciful to their children, to take shelter, to take care of household affairs, and to be obedient to the elderly members of the family are surely just according to the tenets of the Shastras. But we know that one may perfectly observe all these instructions of the Shastras by keeping oneself under the protection of your lotus feet. Our husbands, friends, family members, and children are all dear and pleasing to us only because of your presence, for you are the super soul of all living creatures. Without your presence, one is worthless. When you leave the body immediately dies. And according to the injunction of the Shastras, a dead body must immediately be thrown into a river or burned. Therefore, ultimately, you are the dearmost personality in this world. By placing our faith and love in your personality, we are assured of never being bereft of husband, friends, sons, or daughters. If a woman accepts you as a supreme husband, then she will never be bereft of her husband, as in the bodily concept of life. If we accept you as our ultimate husband, then there is no question of being separated, divorced, or widowed. You are the eternal husband, eternal son, eternal friend, and eternal master, and one who enters into a relationship with you is eternally happy. Since you are the teacher of all religious principles, your lotus feet have to be worshipped first. Accordingly, the Shastras state, Acharya Upasana, the worship of your lotus feet is the first principle. Besides that, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, you are the only enjoyer, you are the only proprietor, and you are the only friend. As such, we have come to you, leaving aside all so-called friends, society, and love, and now you have become our enjoyer. Let us be everlastingly enjoyed by you. Be our proprietor, for that is your natural claim, and be our supreme friend, for you are naturally so. Let us thus embrace you as the supreme beloved. Thus the gopis told lotus-eyed Krishna, please do not discourage our long-cherished desires to have you as our husband. Any intelligent man who cares for his own self-interest reposes all his loving spirit in you. Persons who are simply misled by the external energy, who want to be satisfied by false concepts, try to enjoy themselves apart from you. The so-called husband, friend, son, daughter, father, and mother are all simply sources of material misery. No one is made happy in this material world by having a so-called father, mother, husband, son, daughter, and friend. Although the father and mother are expected to protect the children, there are many children who are suffering for want of food and shelter. There are many good physicians, but when a patient dies, no physician can revive them. There are many means of protection, but when one is doomed, none of the protective measures can help. And without your protection, the so-called sources of protection simply become sources of continued distress. We therefore appeal to you, dear Lord of all lords, please do not kill our long-cherished desires to have you as our supreme husband. Dear Krishna, as women, we are certainly satisfied when our hearts are engaged in the activities of family affairs. But our hearts have already been stolen by you. We can no longer engage them in family affairs. Besides that, although you have repeatedly asked us to return home, and that is a very appropriate instruction, unfortunately, we have been stunned here. Our legs have no power to move a step from your lotus feet. Therefore, if even at your request we return home, what shall we do there? We have lost all our ability to act without you. Instead of engaging our hearts in family affairs as women, we have now developed a different type of lust which is continually blazing in our hearts. Now we request you, dear Krishna, to extinguish that fire with your beautiful smile and the transcendental vibration emanating from your lips. If you do not agree to do us this favor, we shall certainly be burned in the fire of separation. In that way, we think it will be possible for us to reside at your lotus feet in the next life. Dear Krishna, if you say that, if we go home, our respective husbands will satisfy the lusty flame of our desire, we can say only that that is no longer possible. You have given us a chance to be enjoyed by you in the forest, and have touched our breasts once in the past, which we accepted as a blessing, as do the goddesses of fortune, who were enjoyed in the Vaikuntha Lokas by you. Since we have tasted this transcendental enjoyment, we are no longer interested in going to anyone but you for the satisfaction of our lust. Dear Krishna, the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune are always worshipped by the demigods. Although she is always resting on your chest in the Vaikuntha planets, she underwent great austerity and penance to have some shelter at your lotus feet, which are always covered by tulsi leaves. Your lotus feet are the proper shelter of your servitors. And the goddess of fortune, instead of abiding on your chest, comes down and worships your lotus feet. We have now placed ourselves under the dust of your feet. Please do not reject us, for we are fully surrendered souls. Dear Krishna, you are known as Hari. Known as what? Hari. You destroy all the miseries of all living entities, specifically of those who have left their homes and family attachment and have completely taken to you. We have left our homes with the hope that we shall completely devote and dedicate our lives to your service. We are simply begging to be engaged as your servants. We do not wish to ask you to accept us as your wives, simply accept us as your maidservants. Since you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and like to enjoy the Parikya Rasa, and are famous as the transcendental woman hunter, we have come to satisfy your transcendental desires. We are also after our own satisfaction, for simply by looking at your smiling face, we have become very lusty. We have come before you, decorated with all ornaments and dress, but until you embrace us, all our garments and beautiful features remain incomplete. You are the Supreme Person, and if you complete our dressing attempt as the Purusha Bhushana, or the male ornament, then all our desires and bodily decorations are complete. Dear Krishna, we have simply been captivated by seeing you with tilaka and with earrings, and by seeing your beautiful face covered with scattered hair and bearing your extraordinary smile. Not only that, but we are also attracted by your arms, which always give assurance to the surrendered souls. And although we are also attracted by your chest, which is always embraced by the goddess of fortune, we do not wish to take her position. We shall simply be satisfied by being your maidservants. If you accuse us, however, of encouraging prostitution, then we can only ask, where is that woman within these three worlds who is not captivated by your beauty and the rhythmic songs vibrated by your transcendental flute? Within these three worlds, there is no distinction between men and women in relation to you, because both men and women belong to the marginal potency, or prakriti. No one is actually the enjoyer or the male. Everyone is meant to be enjoyed by you. There is no woman within these three worlds who cannot but deviate from her path of chastity once she is attracted to you, because your beauty is so sublime that not only men and women, but also cows, birds, beasts, and even trees, fruits, and flowers, everyone and everything becomes enchanted, and what to speak of ourselves. It is, however, definitely decided that, as Lord Vishnu is always protecting the demigods from the onslaught of demons, so you have also advented in Vrindavan just to give the residents protection from all kinds of distress. O dear friend of the distressed, kindly place your hand on our burning breasts, as well as on our heads, because we have surrendered unto you as your eternal maidservants. If you think, however, that your lotus-like palms might be burned to ashes if placed on our burning breasts, let us assure you that your palms will feel pleasure instead of pain, as the lotus flower, although very delicate and soft, enjoys the scorching heat of the sun. Upon hearing the anxious pleas of the gopis, the Supreme Personality of Godhead smiled. And being very kind to the gopis, the Lord, although self-sufficient, began to embrace them and kiss them as they desired. When Krishna, smiling, looked at the faces of the gopis, the beauty of their faces became 100 times enhanced. When he was enjoying them in their midst, he appeared just like the full moon, surrounded by millions of shining stars. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrounded by hundreds of gopis, and decorated with a flower garland of many colors, began to wander within the Vrindavan forest, sometimes singing to himself and sometimes singing with the gopis. In this way, the Lord and the gopis reached the cool, sandy bank of the Yamuna, where there were lilies and lotus flowers. In such a transcendental atmosphere, the gopis and Krishna began to enjoy one another. While they were walking on the bank of the Yamuna, Krishna would sometimes put his arm around a gopi's head, breast, or waist. Pinching one another and joking and looking at one another, they enjoyed. When Krishna touched the bodies of the gopis, their lust to embrace him increased. They all enjoyed these pastimes. Thus the gopis were blessed with all mercy by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for they enjoyed his company without a tinge of mundane sex life. The gopis, however, soon began to feel very proud, thinking themselves to be the most fortunate women in the universe, due to being favored by the company of Krishna. Lord Krishna, who is known as Keshava, could immediately understand their pride, caused by their great fortune of enjoying him personally, and in order to show them his causeless mercy and to curb their false pride, he immediately disappeared from the scene, exhibiting his opulence of renunciation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always full with 6 kinds of opulences, and this is an instance of the opulence of renunciation. This renunciation confirms Krishna's total non-attachment. He is always self-sufficient and is not dependent on anything. This is the platform on which his transcendental pastimes are enacted. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 29th chapter of Krishna, the Rasa Dance introduction. All right. Howdy bol.
Previous chapter.
Here is, 1 second. Here's Krishna freeing Varuna underwater, freeing Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna. Here's beautiful Krishna playing the flute. Here's Krishna and Radharani. Here's the Rasa dance. He expands himself so each one is surrounded by him, like he expanded himself in the circle of friends. It's 8 o'clock, so we don't have a lot of time for comments, questions, reflections. But I want to say it's been such a joy to read the Krishna book with you. We're going to take a break for a couple of weeks, and then we're still convening on what we're going to do. But we've had votes for Krishna book, we've had votes for Gaur Lila. Maybe we'll do both somehow. I want to strongly encourage you, if you're feeling attracted to these stories and pastimes of Krishna, keep reading. Don't stop. We want to hear about it. We want to hear about how it's going for you, your reflections this week on Nanda Maharaj being saved from Varuna, and the beginning of the intro of the Rasa Lila. The Rasa Lila is 5 chapters, chapter 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. So we can read those and keep going and never stop. Let's take any super quick, lightning quick reflections, comments, anything that stood out from today.
I was thinking the last chapter just seemed like once you discover Krishna consciousness, you can't go back.
Yeah,
That seems to me how the gopis felt, like they just could not
they're done.
return.
His instructions were very good from a mundane perspective, but they were beyond that. And they
It's like the
conquered him.
questions for Sage Group tomorrow reminded me of that.
Yeah, they conquered him with the purity of their love. He doesn't need them, as you see from his detachment. He doesn't need anybody. But the purity of their love was so potent and so pure that he had, from the previous year at the time of their prayers, planned for this reciprocation. He's just playing with them. But he's already completely intoxicated by their love and reciprocating with it, their pure desire for service. Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gana Vrindavan Gana Ki Jai. Shri Krishna Book Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna to our viewers online, our viewers in the recording and the YouTube. We love you. Happy reading. Please message us in the WhatsApp group if you want to be part of our readings going forward. Contact Kishori. stay tuned in a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
But we'll announce, we'll
For
send
more.
an email out well before, so
Yeah.
you know if you wanna be in, keep reading it or not.
Yeah.
Thank
Howdy
you for having
ball.
me, press.
Thank
Shall we
you.
press key?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thanks, everyone.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Harry Ball.
Thank you.
Howdy ball. See you
See you
soon.